ActionSA says its lawyers are meeting with water experts whose testimony will be used as their foundation for legal papers to sue the municipality of Thohoyandou, the Lepelle Northern Water Board, and the Minister of Water and Sanitation for the failed Giyani Bulk Water Project. Earlier, we had a conversation with ActionSA's Limpopo chairperson, Sullo Lidikha, who accused the Water and Sanitation Department of failing the people of Giyani. Now, to respond to what ActionSA had to say, I'm joined by Risimati Mathye, who is the Deputy Director General of Water Services Management at the Department of Water and Sanitation. Thank you so much for making time for us, Risimati. Having heard what ActionSA had to say, accusing the Minister of missing his own deadlines together with the President, what's your response as the department?
Thanks for having us, Clement. I think the first thing we need to put into perspective exactly the issues around this whole project. And I think if we fail to put the proper components of what entails the Giyani Water Project, then we are basically going to shoot a miss. The main issue which we want to register, Clement, is that the project which we are talking about is the raw bulk water from Nandoni to Nsami. Now, the commitment was to have water or the project completed by end of March. And I think that is basically what was basically committed to. Now, last week we did a site visit, Clement, with Scopa, and we were at 10H26, which means it's 26 kilometers of the water arriving at Giyani. Now, on the 5th of April, just before midnight, the raw water from Nandoni to Giyani reached the canal. Now, this is the ultimate achievement of taking raw bulk water from Nandoni to Giyani. Now, if failure is measured based on the not meeting the deadline on the end of March, and I also want to make this submission, Clement, that although the commitment was to finish it by end of March, to get water into the canal, into the dam, we've had a lot of rains in January and early Feb in Limpopo, specifically in the area where this project is basically happening. But despite all these challenges, 5 days later, the water reached the canal. Now, that is the ultimate first objective, which the raw bulk water to take water from Nandoni to Nsami into the treatment works was basically all to achieve. Now, that is one component of the whole Giyani Water Project. Now, the second component, Clement, which I think is fair for us to articulate, is that there is a treatment works in Giyani which had to be optimized to be able to supply water. Now, this project of optimizing, the contractor has been appointed. The implementing agent for that treatment works is Mopane District Municipality. We also took Scopa there last week to show them the progress, and the contractors already on site. Further, over and above that, there is also a further component, which from the original scope, when people talk about the Giyani Water Project, it was never one of the original scope. This talks to the reticulation of 55 villages. Now, this is a component which the minister took over to say we must accelerate and increase the level of service for the communities in Giyani. And as of December, Clement, and as we speak now, there's at least 17, almost 20 contractors that have been appointed. 3 of them were confirmed already last week when we were on site. We visited the site where reticulation is happening with the intention to increase the level of service from communal taps into yard connections. Now, if one is to measure the failure by the department to deliver water by end of March, I would say it's actually unfounded, because by that period, the raw water, which is the original ultimate objective of the Giyani project, which is being spoken about, was to augment water from Nandoni to Nsami. That objective has actually been achieved.
Well, to be fair, though, Risimati, this is not the only deadline we're talking about. I remember late last year, was it in just after September or in September, when the minister apologized to the residents of Giyani for missing the September deadline. President Cyril Ramaphosa was very bold in December when he made this promise that we are going to move faster. Yes, you may say a few days later, that's when you started seeing raw water reaching the canal from Nandoni, but a day is too many for the people of Giyani who have not had access to water. So even when you delay by a day after having made a promise, that's still of concern.
I think the original deadline for the last quarter of last year, which is September, it's already a documented element. And I think few of the issues which we have emphasized is that the delay to have the initial portion to abstract water from the dam to connect to the existing line, which was already laid for a couple of months or so, was basically delayed because some of the communities around Nandoni, they also had issues. They were unhappy on the fact that this project is not actually benefiting them. They wanted water. Mm-hmm. Now, they stopped the project. And this is another municipality, and some of the local authorities there, they were also unhappy. But then the department had to intervene through the minister to ensure that at least those bottlenecks are actually cleared. That is one of the issues that we articulated last year, that the reason why the September deadline could not be met was based on those issues, and they actually compounded to a couple of months until we got to where we are when we did the oversight. Now, okay. Coming to your last point that you raised, that 1 day or 2 days later, it also has an impact on the fact that the communities of Giyani are not receiving water. I think there's actually a misconception on that statement, Clement, because, as I've said, we were bringing raw water from Nandoni to Nsami. That water had to be cleaned from the treatment works and supply the communities of Giyani. Now, the question which we should be asking is, before then, how were these 55 villages and the rest getting water? And I will say this to you, Clement, that Mopane District Municipality has been for years the accounting municipality that was supplying water to all these villages. Yes, they had their own system failures. They were supplying them with boreholes, even from the same treatment works, which the department took to say, we must optimize these treatment works and bring much more capacity. Now, the bringing of the raw water was only to increase the treated water and the capacity in the dam, because the existing original supply that comes from the Middle Letaba, as is well documented, that Middle Letaba dam is running dry because of the illegal abstraction upstream of this dam. This was the original one supply that was bringing raw water into Sami. Now, when we brought Nandoni into Sami, was to augment and balance the shortage of raw water that ought to be cleaned at the treatment works. All these must then end by supplying the 55 villages. Prior to Nandoni coming into effect, the villages under Mopane District Municipality were originally supplied by the same treatment works with water coming from the Middle Letaba, which later was received and seen not to be enough. Now, it will be not factual to say the villages, the 55 villages around the under Mopane District Municipalities were not always supplied with water. Mopane had been taking that accountability. They have their systems in place. Now, when the department stepped in to accelerate service delivery, to increase the level of service from communal tap to yard connection, that is not necessarily saying before then the people were not actually receiving water.
Yeah, and I suppose people also would want to wake up one day and open their own taps and have water flowing out. What's the deadline now?
Exactly.
Yeah, what's the deadline now, Risimati? So you're saying that the raw water has now reached the canal from Nandoni. There are two companies, if I understood you correctly, that have been appointed. So what's the deadline for the completion of this project?
Okay, so we have gone past the raw water. That we need to clarify and make it clear that people need to understand that the raw water is one component of the whole Giyani project. The water has reached the canal. The water has gone into the dam to increase capacity in the dam. Then it must be treated in the treatment works. There's a contractor already on the ground. They're optimizing the treatment works. By mid-August, towards the end of this year, that treatment works will actually be operating at full capacity, producing 30 megaliters a day. Now, the 55 villages which I mentioned, and I said to you, there are 24 villages which are part of the phase 1 that the minister said we must reticulate and increase the level of service. And I said to you, to date, we got a confirmation from Mopane districts, because we are always checking progress, that at least 17 companies have been appointed. Of those 17, there's at least 3 companies as of January that have started to do the reticulation. Now, this project is going to run for about 12 months. So the last contract of this should be completed at least by January at the latest. Yeah. But they are running at actually full speed for the first 24 villages. Then there will be a balance of 31 villages which will come later in the year, and the program will be updated as we go. Now, this is to increase the level of service. And it doesn't mean that these people all these years were not receiving water. Mopane District Municipality has been accountable, so the department stepped in to accelerate the level of service. And so it's very crucial that when we articulate the whole Giyani project, we must be able to separate these components, must be able to separate that there's bulk water that leaves Nandoni to the canal, to augment Middle Tower, which is running dry, and add the capacity in the dam in Sami, then move the water to the treatment works, which is being optimized. Then from there, the water goes to all these villages. Now, that is a separate component. So when we talk of the whole project, we need to be able to combine it properly.
All right. Risimati Mathye, thank you so much for making time. Deputy Director General for Water Services Management at the Department of Water and Sanitation.